I know teachers right now are into their 40s who are still paying college loans off.
The people that aren't in education complain about what we're not doing in education. You're like, all right, so the people that are doing cool stuff, you almost have borderline a moral obligation to say, all right, this is what I'm doing then.
Let me ask you a very quick question. Is it easier to get a passport than it is to substitute teach?
Yep. Like, be lazy. Well, if I'm training people to be teachers, be lazy. Yeah, shut up and let them do it.
There's two emotions that I straddle, right? Is hope and worry. So I'm worried to death about kids, but I'm super hopeful about the future.
Education wants the instant gratification. They want the weeds. They don't want the trees.
CTE is coming gangbusters for the traditional, practitioners who don't want to even entertain moving things around for the sake of efficacy.
Do we need as much time as we need to do school?
I mean, if you're asking a 14-year-old, they're going to tell you a weekend will be fine. But no, I want to challenge kids.
If you're about to listen to this podcast, buckle up.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I was 2 seconds away from recording Alli singing, so which is a great kind of intro coming off of Isaac Palmer and his amazing story. You sure you don't want to sing, Alli?
I didn't even realize I was kind of like singing a little bit. We were so geeked to have Isaac on the podcast, like just such a unique perspective, but like a timeless perspective of education from someone who, what was kind of in the traditional system and then like very maturely left after ninth grade. And to hear, obviously we listened to his episode before we recorded the new one, but he said he hadn't listened to like all of it, and some of the verbiage that he used was like identical.
7 years.
Like 7 years, for someone to feel so strongly about education. And like, I feel like Isaac is the perfect example of someone taking the reins of their own education and realizing like, I'm not going to sit around and wait for education to whatever you want to say, like, take me along. Like, he took charge of his education. I mean, I love the line that he said, like, I graduated from YouTube University.
Yeah.
Such a self-starter. I get, like, not everyone is an Isaac Palmer.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I think there is a piece of Isaac Palmer in everyone, right? Like, if you
100%.
find the right thing. And let's just break this down. He said there was a piano class, okay, in 6th, 7th grade. That one class changed the entire trajectory of his life. I just think that there is power in education and in exposing students to all of these, different ways to interact with the world, to experience the world, to get curious about the world. And at some point, it gets muddled and it becomes about tests and scores and homework and A's and B's and 20 out of 20s and whatever, irrelevant things. And it's like, if we spent the time figuring out, like, what is the drive? What are you excited about? Because then you'll learn anything. And Isaac is a perfect example of that. He got, I would say, like, activated by this piano class, and it just went down this rabbit hole. I mean, by the time he was 16, he was already DJing for live events. Like, I think he'd already been doing it by like 13, 14. Like, he was so deep in the rabbit hole of music at such a young age because he just fell in love with it from a class. And I mean, there wasn't a piano class offered when I was in 6th grade. We had band and stuff, but I wouldn't say it like it wasn't me excited about, music in that kind of way. I did it because it was just something you did.
Right.
But like, imagine if that had there been a piano class, like how would that have changed my life or whatever it would have been. And there's so much. I like fully like dive into it, and I just want to start there because like Isaac is such a good example of being a go-getter in education and how it's so possible to have that happen for more students.
Yeah, I agree. I no, that's I love diving right in because it automatically gets me thinking about my own middle school, right? And I don't remember hardly anything in middle school outside of playing some games outside. We used to play Foursquare, a couple of the friends, but I always remember the things that happened around lunchtime because we did our electives that time of day. So we had a communications route. We had what they called home economics back in the day, but it was like cooking with it. We had an advanced or art course right in there. I remember those specifically, and I think what we can learn from what Isaac said is if something like this is triggering kids to really get curious and go deep into something, we should offer more of it and more wide ranges of experiences in middle school, right? Because basically that's a very interesting time in a student's life where there's just a lot of change going on, and then if you can take that and let's just model everything like this doesn't work for everybody, but for a lot of people, you model it like Isaac, right? Then he went to school as a freshman, and then he was just like, well, I can do this online, and then I can go deeper into figuring out how to be like Calvin Harris, right? Now, what if we actually created all kinds of experiences
Mm.
instead of, trying to get like certain checkbox scores and all these different things at that age? I think that might be a game changer. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think it would be a game changer. I mean, like Isaac said, you know, I think one of the key things he said about his own development, and he did do online school, but he was like, some of the most important things happened when I was in the room.
Yeah.
Right? Like he acknowledges how important it is to communicate and have the durable skills that we do talk about on the podcast. And he says they happen in the real world. They don't happen in the box of the classroom. So he's not talking about like, oh, I was in the classroom. He was like, I was in the room with all these music producers and writers and, talking to all these different people. And that's where he has kind of like really learned the business and art side of the music world that he's in. Right. And I think that's what's so important. That's where the opportunity lies in getting kids in the room of their what they're interested in the drive. Because I think when I've gone on field trips with students, let's say you're taking them to the science museum or the zoo, right? The zoo is a very let's go to the zoo, because the zoo is like such a classic elementary, middle school field trip. And there are some kids who go to the zoo and they look at the animals, but they're more just excited to be outside and socializing with their friends and like not really in the room. But there are some kids, when they go to the zoo, they're like deeply invested in learning about the animals and like connecting with the animals and wondering, how could I work at the zoo? And how could I take care of the hippopotamus or the penguins or the polar bear, right? Like, and that's a whole career, and that's a whole like thing that could really change someone's life. Like, now that I decided to pick the zoo, I actually went on a really interesting professional development field trip as an educator behind the scenes at the zoo, and it was related to the water filtration systems and how do they get the right pH and water levels for all of the different animals, because you can imagine the zoo has a lot of water needs, and if the water doesn't run correctly, like there's a big problem with the animals. But like I remember being like so geeked about going to the zoo and getting the backdoor tour related to the field I was interested in as a professional. But imagine a student who goes to the zoo and they're like, I want to be a zookeeper, and like I really love animals, and they get an opportunity to talk to those people
Mm-hmm.
or intern with those people and be in the room with those people, and not just in like a trivial 20-minute Q&A, but like get to be there, all because they were exposed to that and they had the opportunity to. And that's where it's like Isaac's was the piano class, and it was falling in love with Calvin Harris, and then he made the choice to like deep dive and take the reins of his education. Not everybody has those kind of opportunities. So how can we, though, in education, create more opportunities where you really like, when you find something that a student lights up about, they're really driven to be like deep dive research and get into it, you can tell, and you can create experiences. Like, in my opinion, that's the opportunity to throw the educational rule book out the window, because the kid's going to learn more in so many different ways by allowing them to explore that than doing your traditional 7-period day, math, science, social studies, English, gym class, whatever.
It makes you question all of it. Almost any student will tell you, especially by the time they reach like 10th through 12th grade, that they learn more in the summer than they do going to school. And that's such a big green flag on experiential learning. And rethinking different ways that we can just experience learning, and just put it out there. And I also like the other thing where he didn't really mention this 7 years ago, but Isaac was talking about the social media aspect of it. And not using it as, I do remember there was a big push back in the day when, and I've always said, I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty sure this is my quote, but I'm like, make sure you understand how to use social media and not be used by it. And that to me is something that is been a driving force in everything that I do when, I'm working with young people. I do think that his generation, he's a millennial, but like that generation was just bam, here's a bunch of social media, and there really wasn't a lot of guidance or anything around it. I do feel like we're getting better at it. But I think, that again, I'm skewed. Like, I'm in a big metropolitan area where there's a lot of different access to things, spaces, places, etc. And, you growing up in rural Indiana, that does not exist. And then, you start to dream, and then you start to dream on your phone. And now we have AI, and really you can pretty much, we could do this thing on the island of Oahu right now if we wanted to, and it would look like it, but we wouldn't really be there. So now things are going to get even more blurred without going out and being social, and really talking with people, which I really love that message from Isaac.
I definitely wanted to talk about his perspective of social media, because it's being in the classroom as a sub. I will say, I probably see the absolute worst of the phones in high school right now, because, right, students see a sub day, and oftentimes the teachers leave me like, they just will work on missing work, or I've posted an assignment on Schoology, and they need to work on this practice quiz. It's all electronic, and so the kids, and what I've started calling it, they will start black boxing, where they are completely absorbed in their phone. They have no idea what's going on around them. They're not interacting with anyone. They're completely locked in like a zombie, in my perspective, to their phone. And to Isaac's point, and to many people's points, those apps are designed to keep you on them. They're addictive. And many students in their formative ages, and even adults, like, they lose track of time. I did think it was funny, as a tangent here, that Isaac was like, I learned more in Vegas, sitting around the tables. But I was like, Vegas is an interesting place to mention, because casinos are designed to keep
Mm-hmm.
you in them.
Yeah.
There are no windows. There are no clocks. The lighting is designed to be dim. Everything, the aromas, the smells, everything is designed to keep you in there. Vegas has been doing what social media has been doing for a lot longer, right? And they're very, very good at it, right? So that you spend more money, you have a few more drinks, and the house always wins.
Mm-hmm.
Social media apps are like Vegas, but on your phone, and you have access to it all the time. So what I'm seeing is, man, when Isaac's talking about like, I wanted to take control of my education, I have all this wasted time. I think some days when I'm a sub, I'm like, what could these kids be doing with their time? They were driven and motivated and had like something outside of themselves and outside of social media. Because a lot of them, from my perspective, do not have the training, do not have someone mentoring them on the dangers of social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so easily influenced. That's what marketers want. They want young people to buy their products, use their platforms, like whatever it is they're selling, they want young people, because that's when a lot of people are making their buying decisions for the next 20 years. I mean, I still use, this is a great example, I still use the same mascara that I bought since I was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love it. I don't want to change it. So like, imagine that you get a young person on a platform or a game or an app, and they pay however much, or you get advertisements for it, and they're locked into it for the next 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the opportunity? That's where I think schools, like his point of social media and training kids and understanding how fake it is, and even with AI, like even more now, like how important it is to be in the right room, and to be in the room with people, physically touching and like experiencing, it will become irreplaceable if you can get off of the black box, like, right, like you can get yourself out, because it's so addictive. I think as a teacher, you can get your kids to engage, but when they're given the option to disengage, they go right to their phones. That's the scary part that I'm seeing, that I wasn't seeing when I was an educator. And so my perspective of coming in and seeing that, I will say, I have never been more fearful of students getting like really pulled into the whole of social media, and will they be able to get out of it? I think some will, because they have the right people around them, and who you surround with yourself really matters. But others, I don't know. Like, what are we doing to these kids, and do they have the right tools? I really question it based on what I see.
Yeah. And kind of going on with Isaac and what he was saying. I mean he threw down on teachers being unrelatable. And I think that that's a legit statement. I think that and he mentioned it. He's like, I'm in Indiana. I can be in a rural kind of area. And it's technically a little bit more traditional in certain areas, right? And I think that's an opportunity for schools to really start to, let's take a look at the time frame of things. I'm going to go back to the Mark Essex thing that we were talking about, like how much time do we need to be in school? I think one of the things that is pretty interesting about the way that our high school works is we do have blended time. I mean, the students we do not have to meet with the students every day. There are certain parameters around it. But at the end of the day, like you can come in, and I think when you put somebody in a box, right, and they're not interested, they're going to just find something that's interested. So I think on the other hand of that, I think that we have an opportunity to change the structure of what a school day looks like, because let's face it, Allie, you're getting ready for a flight and it's delayed for 2 hours, right? What's the first thing you're going to do? Like, okay, I'll probably people watch, maybe grab something to eat a little bit in the airport. But I'll be honest, like when I have to pass time, I'm going to get on some reels because it goes really fast. So are we delaying learning by having students in a school in the four walls and a ceiling, and holding them accountable for checking boxes that really don't make sense to them. I think
Mm,
that's a legit conversation that kind of spurred out of our conversation with Isaac.
definitely. I love the idea of blended time, non-traditional schedules, especially at the high school level. Isaac's put it, I love the way he worded it. He was like, look, you need to kind of like, stop making high school so
Yeah.
childish,
Hmm.
right? Like in his mind, that was his words. And I think there is a huge opportunity to reimagine the schedule. Well, we've talked about it before, but like it now is really the time with AI and YouTube University. I mean,
Hmm.
whatever university, it's all out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to he made this interesting point about people being introverted, extroverted, but how important it was to be around people and interact with people.
Hmm.
And Adam Grant, who is a phenomenal author, and he's a speaker, but he labels himself as an introvert, and he kind of recently started, I would say, showing his face more. Him and James Clear are not like they have these big books, right? Like James
Hmm.
Clear with Atomic Habits, and I'm just drawing a blank on Adam Grant's book. So it's something like a think think critically or something.
Hmm.
Anyway, um, but Adam Grant recently posted about how everyone is social, but the introverted, and so people think like, oh, introverted, extroverted is about like where you get your energy from. And the myth is that introverts get their energy from themselves and like recharging, not with people, and the extroverted people get their energy from people. And he was like,
Hmm.
look, that's not how it is at all. Everybody gets their energy from people. Everybody. The
Right.
threshold level is lower for introverts. So they get overstimulated faster.
Hmm.
And so they might need to be at a party for an hour and then they're done. And then an extroverted person can go like Isaac till 2, 3 in the morning, DJing
Hmm.
it up and being around people. Right. And
Right.
so I think that's a really interesting point because now the phones and they can make you so not social and be so easy to live
Hmm.
vicariously through the screen and everything. And so the importance of being in the room, and I do think it's a call to, he talked about this middle ground, Isaac, of like, yes, we do live in a technological world, but we're gonna have to have more in-person events, learning experiences. You
Hmm.
just cannot replicate on a screen
Yeah.
because it's so important for like us as humans, right? Like we are social creatures, and when we are doom scrolling or whatever you want to call it, like right, you're just scrolling to scroll and you're not interacting with people, it's more detrimental to your health is what I'm reading and
Hmm.
finding. And so it's like, but if you're in a room around people but you're not interacting with them because you're on your phone, I just think the conversation education needs to happen because we're at a really critical point in time, I think, where some places are addressing social media, are addressing
Hmm.
the screens, and others are just like, oh, forget about it. And like I think that unrelatable comment that Isaac made is somewhat related to that. Like you can't be so traditional,
Right.
but you can't avoid like how technology is affecting teens.
Yeah.
And that's where I think getting their interest and getting them excited to like have a mentor and be in person with and be in the room is really, really powerful perspective that Isaac has immersed himself in the last 7 years. And look
Yeah.
where he's at now. He's on the Billboard charts.
Yeah. He's doing okay. The yeah, I like that. I think the balance between you the worst thing that could happen is that you take away phones and then you still stick to all traditional. And there
Yes.
has to be conversation in the classroom. There has to be, there has to be experiences, there has to be moving around and different things, but you see it, and if you Google it, you'll see. I will tell you that our school district is looking seriously into this. In the past, you're like, yeah, we'll try to do this one all thing or whatever, but they are seriously now looking into different ways to do this, and I think that's, it's so interesting that, you take somebody who learned online to tell you that within a
Oh,
school. And Isaac, I'll tell you what, he's seeing a lot through he's got two younger brothers, and he's, I'm sure they've had some conversations about, how, they can, do that. But the curiosity now is going to be real in your face. But I think this is also where we have the opportunity for community members to come in, solve problems, active, like playing with clay, or in PE classes we actually have kids out on bicycles and things like that, like when the weather permits. And but those the activity pieces, and that's honestly, I think, 180 days. I mean, if you think about it, what, I don't even know. I mean, somebody can remark on this, but like how many Major League Baseball games there are in a year. We have more days that are butts and seat days for 8 periods a day on a typical traditional school. Where, I mean, we've got to do something different. And I really think there's so much opportunity in changing the way a school day looks. You look in Europe, right? They're done typically, and a lot of Eastern or Western European schools, they're done by 11:30 noon, and then they have a ginormous lunch. This is what a student in Germany like taught me
yep.
a few years back, and then they come back for a couple more hours, and that's all like interest kind of based learning. And it's just not held in a box. And again, we start looking at different ways of homeschooling and the amount of time that you have. Um, you know, it you can see why we're just burning people out. And if you can imagine, like Isaac, think about it, like where would he be? And I want to leave kind of everybody thinking about this, like where would he be at, number one, if there was no opportunity to be in a class like a piano class that was a little different, and he had to stay in high school in the box his junior through sophomore through senior year. I think these are the opportunities that, we've got to give people choice. I think we have to highly individualize things. And I think the tools are out there to do it. And I think it's all out there in a way where we are not going to have to get rid of teachers or minimize the professionals. We're not teachers anymore. We're mentors and coaches. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's who we are, and we might be this is subject experts in what we do,
Mm-hmm.
but as a coach, I may be the best basketball player in the world, and I come to coach, then I still have to teach that student the why behind it and those things, and that takes communication, that takes experience, that takes all these different things. So that's never going away. Um, I just think the opportunity is prime right now. And yeah, I'm excited to see where Isaac goes, but I think he brings up some amazing opportunities that we are missing. So yeah.
He definitely does. I will say, for as my final thoughts to what you brought up there about teachers in utilizing, your subject matter. I know one of the fears that I always heard about, changing the curriculum and changing the schedule and,
Mhm.
but like I teach this class and, I don't know how to teach something else. And
Mhm.
I think for those educators out there, you are so incredibly talented in so many more ways than like English 10 or algebra or US history or whatever classes you've put yourself in the box in. Like,
Mhm.
I guarantee the vast majority of educators could teach the standards that they know and love and incorporate, like, let's say they love baking at home
Mhm.
and they could totally do that at school and teach the curriculum in English. Like, I guarantee it's possible. Or like, if I was in the classroom full time, like incorporating all of the skydiving stuff that I do into a physics, chemistry classroom, science classroom, like 100%. And being in the room, like there are, you know, all these athletes outside of school, and people have all these hobbies and interests. They themselves are lifelong learners. And I want to just encourage educators, like, you are so much more than the classes that you teach.
Yeah.
And I think that experience, bringing that into the classroom more and more, is your superpower. Because that's where you can really change education and get kids excited about incorporating the learning outside of the box. Like, right there are so many ways to do this. It's, you know, and of course it's bringing in the community and whatnot, but it's also bringing in you into the classroom and realizing like how much more you know than you did when you were 14 through 18, right? And like, that's invaluable too, because I know whenever I would talk about my trips or the things I was doing, like running the marathons or like strength training and all the different things that I was doing outside of the classroom, coaching volleyball and, you know, just all the different things I'm interested in, kids love that. They loved learning about that. And they're like, what, you have a whole life outside of here? Yeah, I do. Like, the skills don't just stop like here, but that's really, I think, the opportunity from an individual educator perspective too, that I think just needs to be said, because I think teachers wildly underestimate themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I felt that. So like, I can relate to that feeling, but I just want to empower educators to be like, you could teach so much more than what you currently teach. And you won't lose your job. Like, you know, like, so I think that's some of the fear,
There's
right?
nobody out there to replace you.
I know, if you change education, like, what would I teach, right? Like, I can hear that question in educators' minds. And I just want to be like, there are so many lifelong skills, durable skills that you do in your daily job that like could be broken down and taught in a building, even if they completely wiped the slate and they got rid of all the quote unquote traditional classes. I guarantee you would have so much value to add and you would love it so much more.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great place to end, because honestly, we're gonna have more series after these. And I think what we're doing is we're picking up pieces to build on the foundation. The reason why we want to go back and take a look at our previous guests and see the consistency and see, this has not changed. It's been 7 years. We've had a pandemic, and you can see that Isaac is still saying the same thing even as he's going through life. We'll see what our other guests say as we keep going. So I'm going to leave that cliffhanger here, because we're going to be talking to a few more of our older guests. They are older now. They were rather young when I first interviewed them way back when. So we appreciate you guys, everybody listening. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Share this out. We're having these real conversations about education, and just like Isaac said, having these conversations and being in a social setting like this, even though we're on Zoom, it's a tool. I feel pretty good after each one of these conversations. So for Alli Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. Thank you so much for listening to the Disrupt Education podcast. We'll catch you next time. That's a wrap on this episode of the Disrupt Education podcast. Let's keep the momentum going. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode out.
If you want to dive deeper into disrupting education, visit our website at disrupteducationpodcast.com.
Here's the bottom line. We believe real change in education starts locally. It happens when communities come together to rethink learning. If you're an educator, school leader, or organization looking to take action towards real change in education, we are here to help. Reach out and connect.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. So drop us a line wherever you listen. And until next time, take that bold step beyond your comfort zone. challenge the status quo and be the change education truly needs.
Because at the end of the day, education isn't just about subjects, it's about students. And when we dare to disrupt, the future of learning is waiting.